What's going on, folks? Welcome to the Loud Sound Epicenter podcast. We're back, and I just got back from a graduation event. So if anyone's in a similar spot, if you're a young person, this is a Gen Z show after all, let me know. Tell me what's going on. Feeling pretty good. And a lot of stuff's happened this week, so I want to get into some things. Maybe I'll promo a couple minutes in for Replay Gang. But thank you to Dudley New Right Post, NRP. He just launched the first content that we've done together for his New Right Post Substack. So check him out. I'd like to promo his stuff that is public now. We're still working on this article, me and somebody else on Substack, different person. And we'll see what happens. So it seems like everything's moving. Some of the content is getting more consistent. Let me go on Twitter to give proper promo, and then we can take it from there. What do we got? And if people are interested, maybe we can get some folks, because it seems like I've been talking to more people regularly, people outside our sphere. But for those who don't know, New Right Post does a lot of DR content. If you want to catch up on the latest content, he seems to be a very reliable, nonpartisan person. And since it's Friday, maybe some of us are available. Maybe some of us want to talk about other things. But let me know. Let me know what's going on. We don't usually do the show, so I'm a little all over the place. So yeah. Oh, did I not? Excuse me. Let me do his Substack, and then I can share screens if you guys want. It's been fun, man. It's been fun. NHB still continuing. Twitter Spaces still going on. And now I'm kind of a writer again. I was a space hoster, and now I'm doing all this writing as well. So I guess the brand finally found some balance. But it's been interesting. It's been interesting because the Twitter Spaces are so partisan. They're so entertainment, radio-ish. And the writing is more nonpartisan, maybe more academic, maybe more of like a spectator. So it's kind of like embodying the two archetypes that we talk about. I mean, I don't know if it comes across that I'm too partisan on this show, but I would like to think people can tune in, not feel too exposed or like I'm being too biased. But I don't know. That's up to you guys. If you guys have questions, let me know. If you guys are curious about certain things, you know, I do lore spaces sometimes, off and on. And that's kind of the time for it to be a little more interactive. I haven't done as much regular YouTube content, but for the sake of this recording, maybe people are curious about certain things happening. And I can go over some stuff if there's no questions, because there's a lot. There's a lot going on from different factions. And maybe there's a way to do that without being so partisan. Planning on doing some spaces myself. Well, hey, thank you, Charles. Yeah, man. Geo wanted to do spaces, allegedly. You seem to imply that, but it seems like that's difficult for some people who already have their own content. I have more flexibility. I just graduated, so I'm going to have more free time than ever before. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I've also been kind of not up to date with all the DR YouTubers. So maybe there's some interesting stuff going on there. One of you guys is pulling up a lot of tabs. I don't really appreciate that, but go ahead if you want to do certain things. I guess, what should I start with? I guess we can start with Dudley. Let me share my screen here. And then this is more of like a relaxed, Friday space. Oh my goodness. This is all over the place. Is this it? Yeah, this is it. So let me promo my guy. I guess we're curious about certain things happening. Maybe. Yeah, maybe. So by the way, New Right Post from Dudley New Right, making sense of the New Right, the best tweets, threads, video, audio, etc. It's effectively a newsletter, bi-weekly, and you get all kinds of stuff. You get threads, maybe some of your favorite accounts appear on here. And then you get reads of the week, some gonzo journalist type stuff here. Dudley here, your editor-in-chief. You may have heard us whine in various podcasts that putting together the reads section can be a real slog, but it's work. So we are blessed to announce, to announce that this week we invited fresh-faced NRP intern Ace to take the reins. Be nice, but let us know how you think he did. So he usually does it all himself, a one-man army operation, and the guy's just extremely diligent. He's a very productive worker. He's an adult, and one of the things I usually make fun of is all these older guys. They get into a kind of hive mind and they want to go after people because they feel so cliquey. However, Mr. Dudley is an exception. Some might say a rare case because he doesn't seem to lean into that kind of archetype. This is one of those rare figures that can actually give people like me, and by people like me, that can mean Zoomer, that can mean Groiper, that can mean somebody that doesn't have a lot of clout, but maybe wants to commentate, perhaps in a space. Maybe someone like Med Gold or Zero HP Lovecraft would be very hesitant or dismissive. However, maybe it's because me and Dudley met IRL at one of these Yarvin type events, and we got to talking. We were talking earlier on before NHB really took off, and I was like, man, these Twitter spaces are really popping. If only there was some journalist type covering them like a beat reporter. And that seemed to pique his interest. We got to talking, and after my stream, what was that, a week or so ago, he calls me after the show. We have a dialogue, and things finally start moving. Now it's the end of this week, roughly, and we got some content on Substack. So, hey, as far as like a will to power, start small, think about things vaguely. How about if we just finally reach out to our mutuals and just do things? Maybe they're not hugely successful or making a huge dent on the timeline, but people doing this in any capacity. There's another person who I hesitate to even talk about because it's been kind of controversial in the Groiper sphere. And I don't even know who our audience is at this point. Maybe I should say it now before too many people get in here. Can I say it? Is it okay? I don't want people to... Okay, hold on. Well, let's pump the brakes. Okay? I think a lot of people are busy right now. It's like a late-ish afternoon for most people in America. So I assume we have mostly an American audience, and so they're kind of tuned into maybe some of the drama in the DR, maybe not going to be super partisan in the chat. So maybe now's a good time. Early in the show, it's less than 10 minutes. I'm going to say this now because I don't want to have too many other people find out about this, but I just want you guys to know, since this is probably going to get put into Substack, just like the thing I'm going to get to in a sec here. I've been talking with a certain account, somebody who claims to be a closeted Hegelian, somebody who claims to kind of flirt with all these different factions, or I guess mainly in the BAP sphere, kind of a BAP adjacent philosophy type account. And I've been talking with this person. I gave them a rough draft, and they seemed interested. We're going to talk about some Polia content. We're going to talk about what's been going on with some of the e-girls. Okay, looks like we got Man with the approval. So I'll just cut to the chase, I guess, since maybe this might come a certain way, but let me just say it, okay? I've been talking to a certain Daniela Pensac, if I'm saying that properly. And one thing that's caught my attention, because as you guys know, I've been talking with these communists recently. I've been checking out a Discord channel. I've been in spaces where I'm like the lone reactionary present. And so what I'm saying is I'm trying to branch into some of the philosophy content. I'm trying to find different people to get a less political type content and get into more Substack, not long form, but kind of article-centric journalism type content. And whereas a lot of these people want to get into, like, what is her name? I went over some of her stuff. Rachel Haywire. Rachel Haywire was somebody that Dudley recommended me to check out. And I was in a space with somebody talking about Heidegger and Derrida. Or no, excuse me. That was another space. There was another space where someone was, whatever. I was aware of this person, but didn't really check out their content. And then I'm working with Dudley, and we're doing Substack content. Her name gets, included in the work. And so recently, I've been reaching out to Danielle. I've been trying to do some philosophy type content, but like Haywire, like all these other R.N. McIntyre types, whenever people do the philosophy thing, and this is my big critique about the DR, they always make it super serious, super political. They got to talk about monarchy and history and all this stuff. And there's a time and a place for that. But if we're talking about merging a Gen Z audience with some of this bookworm content, there has to be something that's really relevant to the younger crowd. And so you see some stuff out there like E-Girl Coin, or you see some of the Yarvin content, and you think, all right, this is kind of like a culturally appealing subgenre. We're kind of getting somewhere outside of a exclusively political space. But I was setting a draft to this person, and at first, I guess it was kind of a vague postmodernism thesis. But with everything going on with Bronze Age shoddy and the dime square scene, it seems like the real factor that's missing is this kind of Catherine D. pop culture centric online trends theme that is largely missing from a lot of this Yarvin dime square type content. So I guess what I'm saying is right now it's a big combination. It's a big eclectic, I don't know. It's really all over the place. But what I'm finding out as I send these different drafts over DMs is we really got to find people that can consolidate this stuff and kind of help us out with all of this eclectic thinking. I would like to talk about the hippies and the 60s in general, maybe some Mario Savio content, maybe some Kerouac, Beatnik stuff, but there's got to be something we're combining it with. There has to be something DR related. So I'm definitely going to have to read some more. I'm definitely going to have to probably check out other people's Substacks because everybody else is already having their own thing. And so as a Zoomer, it's not usually people like me that are stepping into that arena. But what Danielle has been really helpful with recently is getting something integrated into her type of content. If you check out her Substack, a lot of it is Schopenhauer. I think she recently did stuff about the libertarian alt-right pipeline. And I think recent stuff was talking about sex and sex ethics and a lot of this other stuff that, is kind of raw philosophy summaries, raw modernity summaries. But what's missing, even in this person who I like, what's missing is that pop culture element. And I think that's something that maybe Yarvin kind of flirts with, but I don't think most people are coming to him for that. People are coming at it for the philosophy, a dissident right perspective on the current state of the right. That's not us. That's not our role. We have our own pundits that do that. We have our own commentators closer to our age. And a lot of these older types, they're onto something. The cultural appealing BAP type philosophy talk, that's onto something. But it's not pop culture based. So they're missing something significant. So didn't quite explain that in a very organized way. Excuse me for that. What I'm trying to say in too many words, like always, is I'm starting to find the audience. I'm starting to find the people, I'm starting to find the collaborators. And this is all in a very early phase. I don't know if a lot of this is going to stay consistent, but I just want to name drop some people. I want to name drop people that I've been talking to. And some of these people are controversial because they're not like us. And I'm not trying to endorse a kind of olive branch to other ideologies, other types that may not defend us in other circumstances. But as far as kind of that early alt-right era where they had some of the libertarian types, and it was kind of an intelligentsia, Brimolo, Jared Taylor, Spencer. That was commonplace back then. But nowadays, we're all, Nick talks about this in his Amaranth speech, 2018. The younger people cluster towards the younger side, the older people cluster towards the older side, and that's how you get the Wignats and the Amnats. That's how you get the Groypers and BAP types. And it is what it is. People are in their own little sphere. But I think I would be lying if I said each faction doesn't have certain people in gray areas, not really partisans. They'll boost people probably in the same way people boosted people back in 2019. Everybody was watching everybody. The Sam Hyde people seemed to kind of rub shoulders with the BAP types. Charles was in Man's World magazine. I think my college friend told me that, who's also graduated, by the way. So shout out. But he also reminded me that some of these Sam Hyde type people, I don't know if that's the people in his crew or him himself, but I guess those guys kind of flirt with the, drinking raw eggs and self-help book, self-improvement stuff. And who's pushing that content? It's not usually guys like us. And Sam Hyde and those guys are older than us, so it would be kind of strange for them to kind of be closer to us in that way. So what I'm just saying is a lot of the stuff is what it is. People fall in their own little camp. But as far as what it's relevant to us for, we're in the DR, we're in this broader space, and we're going to try to make a brand that's pop culture friendly and also Zoomer friendly. You don't usually get that with some of the millennials. And we want to get into the philosophy talk, but not make it so serious. People like Athenian Stranger and all these guys that do Twitter spaces and threads also seem to lack some of that. So we're going to try to fix it. We're going to try to do things the messy way, I guess you could say. But that's what's been happening. And since we got, thanks to Dudley, people on record helping us out, it's not just like a Google Doc that sits there, which speaking of, I gotta move some of my Google Doc stuff, including the Daniela article. I got to move that somewhere else. Because I don't know, do you get to keep your school email for the rest of your life? I don't know how that works. Maybe some of you guys who are graduates, do you still use it? Because I'm paranoid. I don't want to lose all of I effectively use it like a diary, but I don't know. So I got to remember to do that. It's probably tonight. And then I'm just white-pilled. I've been collaborating with more people. Not all of it is public. I had to email somebody about a Howard Hughes article. They didn't seem to like it 100%. We got this e-girl article, Polya thing. That's not done yet. We got to do another draft. But we got some Dudley New Right content, New Right post. So I want to give a proper plug for our guy, one of our guys in this thing of ours. And he's been doing a lot of fun stuff. Let me catch up with the chat here. So anyways, little update. We're trying to put out written content. And maybe that'll turn into, who knows? It's an early phase. But I want to name drop some people because a lot of it's been kind of vague. So thank you, Charles. Thank you, Man. Yeah, I haven't been keeping up with General DR as much. Well, hey, we'll get into some of that in this article. Personal issues and everything. No worries, man. No worries. Will to post. There you go, Mona. Thank you, Mona. Mona, a reliable chatter. Content creator himself, a clipper, a man with many titles. So thank you, man. Thank you for all the help because you make this kind of easier. Thank you, Truth. I've enjoyed watching the split between the H.P. Lovecraft, etc., and the largely Jewish side. Yeah, well, that is definitely a component, getting a kick out of it. Yeah, it's fun. It's entertaining. Closeted Hegelian. Yeah, I know. Well, we've been talking to some like real Hegelians, apparently. People that try to merge Marxist-Leninism into left Hegelian thought. So I know Thomas wouldn't like that so much, but Nikki the Hegelian has been a very cordial collaborator with us, talking to us in Twitter spaces. She invited us on the show. So I appreciate everybody who's got a good head on their shoulders and keeping things mild. I want to talk about some back and forths that happened with me and her crew. It is what it is. We're not ideologically similar, of course, but just some funny things that happen. Things get a little hostile. Fair enough. My best friend, loyalty to you, good in my book, regardless of what made you take. Well, thank you. Philosophicat? No. I don't know. She doesn't really, does she do written content? Maybe she would be the one to reach out to. I don't know. She's more of like a YouTuber, right? I don't want to say Lauren Southern, but she's more of like a, not video essayist, but just kind of like a streamer. So I don't know. Maybe there's some overlap there. I find myself, but she's pagan though, so I don't know. I'm a little hesitant with those types, but maybe. I find myself more drawn to Christianity and conspiracies in our world than I do philosophy and modernity. Although I did at one point find modernity and its various philosophies to be very interesting. Yeah, that's definitely don't want it to contradict with religious and political identity. But maybe we can kind of make sense of some of the classicist versus romanticism. We got into some of that in the space, but not in great detail. Somebody was telling me that, Goethe disavowed all of this romanticism stuff because it ultimately leads to nihilism. That includes Jim Morrison and rock and roll and all of this 60s hedonism that took us out of the classical age. And that's interesting. I don't know what I think about that. I mean, that would kind of line up. You do have a kind of revolutionary, you have a musical revolution. Does that mean it has to be like politically left wing or egalitarian or anti-authority? I don't know. Is there a way to just make a distinction between some of the political revolution and the musical one? I'm not sure. Not to touch the earth by the Doors. Very dark when looking back. Yeah, that's the thing. It's kind of anti-hippie. It's anti-hippie, which you think would be a more reactionary take on that era, that whole climate of peace and love. It's talking about death and sex, but in what context? Is it a nihilistic context or is it a vitalism? I don't know. It's kind of confusing, but we'll see. I want help from the audience. That's why I need to collaborate with people. We need to get these ideas contextualized. Underrated song, Shaman's Blues. Well, thank you, Mona. Thank you. We need some Doors edits. We really need some Doors edits. Maybe Mona's the guy for that. This Deshaun character, he did these edits promoting NHB. You had music, you had movie scenes, and then, no holds barred. Maybe Mona, since he's already doing some of that, he's got the black and white aesthetic. Maybe he can help this show and others throw in some music there. Be careful for the copyright, but maybe we can kind of help synthesize some of our views and blend some of the music as the backdrop, the pop culture figures like Morrison, and get like a whole Sunset Strip, LA nationalism going. I mean, with all of that stuff, get the images and the sounds just right. Maybe Mona's the guy for that, just kind of speaking out loud. Yo, what's going on, Chess Jimmies? What's on the agenda? Well, I wanted to give some thank yous. Because Dudley New Right on Twitter is platforming my gonzo journalism, platforming my Zoomer eccentric pop culture vibe, art critic vibe. So thank you to Dudley New Right. Dudley New Right Post. Check him out on Twitter. Some new Substack content from yours truly. And we're going to get into some of the drama with the dissident right. Some Dime Square stuff, BAP content. And then also just I kind of want to talk in general terms. A lot of this genre that we're trying to make real here. People like Rachel Haywire and some of these others are kind of getting into. I want us to try to contextualize. How do we talk about the 60s? How do we talk about the beatniks and make it relevant for our side? Because, I don't want it to turn into this big slog where we're just talking about stuff because we want to name drop people. I would like this to be some consistent content. Next Wednesday, I guess now's a good time for an announcement. Next Wednesday, we're going to be talking to, what's her name? I don't know her name. We're going to be talking to a lot of women more recently. Isn't that kind of crazy? I don't know. That's kind of the arc we're on, the very feminine 60s. You know, we try to hang out with the hyper masculine BAP type philosophy bookworms, talking about politics, trying to get into DC, but make it based. And then there's the art critics. There's this New York type scene. Maybe Andy Warhol's Factory is a nice parallel. All the art critics kind of come at it from that feminine, the romanticism comes from that kind of feminine commentary on the state of the world. Not really this mathematic, analytical, male perspective. We're kind of doing things in a much more free-flowing type of way. So kind of an interesting arc, you know? Maybe that makes things make sense a little bit more. So this is Hegelborg, another Hegelian, I guess. So, hey, all the philosophy people are into Hegel, and they're women. So, you know, make of that what you will. Let me share screens here. We're going to be talking about that CIA Manson 60s book. And I haven't read it, but we're overdue to talk about that, among other things. So here's her Twitter account. We can give a promo to Dudley New Right Post as well. But again, this is the name dropping stream. This is what have you been doing with who about what? Well, here you go. We're doing our pop culture content. What does that mean? Doing Jonathan Bowden essay type stuff? Kind of, not really. Doing some Nietzsche's Birth of Tragedy? Kind of, not really. We want to have a very Zoomer friendly cultural take on all of the DR stuff and then just things in general. So there's Hegelborg, and then can I do Dudley New Right? This is Dudley New Right Post. So for those that don't know, this is the guy. These are the people that are inspiring the channel. These are the people that are getting us out of politics and into art criticism. You know, I said how Geo is kind of a big influence because he gets into that kind of stuff. Well, Geo is one guy. Will the real art critics please stand up? Well, here they are. Here are the guys, the beat reporters, the beatniks of our time. So I want to give a proper shout out. These guys are doing all kinds of stuff, and they don't need me to make it cool. They're already doing stuff on their own. So, hey, man, that's cool. Curious George, maybe you're right, Dime. Maybe you're right. Yeah, at least it's not yellow. Imagine me wearing a yellow shirt. That just doesn't really work for really anything, you know? I don't know. Who wears yellow in general? What's like the yellow aesthetic? Like tie-dye? I don't know. So anyways, I'm glad you're here, Just Jimmy's, on a Friday evening, late afternoon, depending where you're at. There is something to a constant revolution, always update. Question is, what before you are killing? Right. You know, we say we're anti-conservative, so that kind of puts us in the revolutionary camp. Nick talked about us as futurists, kind of like a Christian futurism. But that seems to be very different from the Italian futurists, who seem to be more, you know, more of an anarchic, destructive movement. So I guess, you know, as young people, we're kind of flirting with all these different ideas, checking out what's worked in the past, what hasn't. And so I'd like to take a similar mindset to these hippies and all that stuff. Bass guitarist, thank you for being here. Let's go, man. And of course, we got the July 27th Patriot Jam Music Festival. Thanks to bass guitarists and others for doing all the heavy lifting. I appreciate them putting that together. And I'll be there if you're in the Tennessee area. That'll be fun times. Again, a lot of summer things coming about. So if you'd like to check things out, stop by. Other things on the horizon. I don't monetize anything I post financially. I've been fine for a long time. Do it for the love. Well, hey, thank you, man. We need more guys like Mona. He gets it, man. Glow up. Yes, thank you. Oh, Philosophicat. Her yap. Yeah, the Evola stuff. Yeah, that's true. But maybe somebody like that might be you might want to get that person to talk about other stuff, and they might have kind of a curious take. Because we know what happens when you ask like Athenian Stranger about certain things or Bap about certain things. It only goes so far. It seems to be reduced to this platonic or partisan political take, revisionist historian take. And I don't want us to be like National Review, but just a little bit more paleocon. I want us to be the Rolling Stone, Village Voice, Kerrang. You know, that's more our milieu, I like to think. Okay, enough of that. We need to stop talking like that for the rest of the space. No more, no more, no more. By Aerosmith. Here, let's get here. Let's do this. But keep sending in your questions. Keep sending in all that you got right here. And we're gonna try to. Oh, how do you put links? Do we got? Is there links on Instagram? There it is. And we got the YouTube. What do we got? We have to pull up Loud Sound, right? Excuse me. We don't usually do this. All right. Well, thank you for the 17 people that are actually here. Someone's pulling up tabs, doing all kinds of what have yous. And it's been fun times. But all right, so we got the Instagram. Oh, we got Telegram too, don't we? I guess we could do that pretty soon here. We'll catch up with chat. We'll continue Dudley New Right's content here. For 777 show, I have the intro song to use. Well, there you go. We'll be in touch on Twitter. Thank you, Mona. I appreciate you. The Hegel was an actual poster pre-Trump days. Incredible. Yeah, maybe that's one of CompBot's mutuals there. That's a compliment. Curious George is a... Well, thank you. Well, hey, we got to keep the youth exuberance, as Spencer said. Bass guitarist can pull off the yellow. Well, hey, man, that's a rare one. Philosophicat sings. Well, hey, man, maybe that's the real art expressing itself, you know. We don't want her as this, like, Evola expert. We want her as this, you know, 60s hippy-dippy singer. Maybe that's kind of the vibe there. Did I miss anybody up top? You used to be able to keep your school email. I used mine for years, but recent changes from Google now has schools cutting people off. Okay, well, I got to get that under control because I don't want to lose. I basically have, like, all of my articles, essays, rough drafts. They're all on my school email. So I got to take care of that. But yeah, truth here. Whoops, that's the wrong comment. This one. I want to emphasize that, like, this is my take too. When I talk about the philosophy and the pop culture stuff, I was getting attacked in a Twitter space because people were claiming that because I defend the 60s in this strange way, the fact that I'm excited about a bunch of young people doing their own thing, kind of in a decentralized manner, that comes across as running cover for all the sex, drugs, and vices that took place with those same types. And I think that's because most people are familiar with that commercial Ginsburg side of the hippies. Maybe that defines just about the whole movement or the real movement. But I'm more interested in finding these outliers like Kerouac and Morrison and people that seem to stand in spite of all the free love and egalitarian talk, civil rights motif. I would like to find some of the more dissident people that were part of that early scene and maybe even spoke out against what came of it later on. I'm not trying to like lie about the 60s and say that it was secretly conservative or secretly based, but I'd like to capitalize on some of those figures and perspectives that probably get sidelined by Ginsburg and Burroughs and all these people that kind of had a very, I don't know, they had a very, what would you call it? Like hedonistic, materialist type life, I guess you could say. So it's not to kind of like impose my own worldview onto these people with different views, but I definitely want to find the people that are closer to us so that we can kind of make sense of this stuff. Christopher Sandbach talks a lot about, you know, some of the things that are salvageable from the hippie movement. And it seemed like he's kind of moved more in like a left dissident perspective. I'm not totally privy to all of his worldview, but he's been kind of catching my attention the way he talks about. I think we were in a Twitter space talking about some counterculture stuff, and I think that that's very relevant to talk about the dissident right and some of these people. If you guys tuned into the January episode, a lot of this is redundant, but that's what I mean to say. I didn't explain that very well in the Twitter space. So when I was going on about my rock and roll belongs to everybody, you know, Elvis and the Doors belong to every young person, every 20-something, Gen X, millennial, Gen Z, you know. Endernax gave me a hard time about, why do you talk about the boomer music so much? Aren't you supposed to talk about like Zoomer stuff, including the music that they're listening to? Well, it's about the youth genre, youth as this, you know, intergenerational thing. So that's where the beatniks come into it, and all these art critics. That's something that's closer to us than somebody like a Pat Buchanan or a Sam Francis. You know, these guys were real columnist types. These were real bookworms and intellectuals. And we came out of, you know, vaguely speaking, we came into this through the 4chan, gamer culture, Gamergate. And so the way that Catherine D has kind of explained a lot of the Tumblr girls' arcs into woke politics, there needs to be the male counterparts, the Marshall McLuhan perspective on the male radicalization into far-right politics. And that's through culture, not, you know, we didn't read a bunch of, we didn't read a bunch of Thomas Sowell books and then moved on to something edgy like Buchanan and then something edgy like Peter Brimelow. You know, I think the arc was more Twitter-based, image-based, edits-based stuff in general. So, you know, maybe that's a little all over the place, but that's what I mean to say. That's why I harp on all the weird Rolling Stone writer stuff. I like to be a writer. I like to lecture things on the lore and the Twitter stuff, but I don't think I come at it as this like history teacher, lecturer type, because I don't think that's true to our identity. Our identity is more romantic. We got Gio in chat. Gio Benegetti in chat. I am so glad to see a mutual. Guntbot still seething to this day. You know what's funny? Kantbot apparently had a big fuss when I was talking to Nikki. Nikki was trying to get Groypers to come on her show and talk about their ideology. And Kantbot was, I didn't even see his tweet. Apparently he was like, I don't know if he blocked her or if he put out something saying like, what's going on here? But when I came onto her show through her Discord server, one of the first things she was talking about when I got in was Kantbot had beef with her over her stream. You know, this isn't even like a huge commentator. Nikki the Hegelian is this IGG Haas communist type, Marxist Leninists. So anyways, it's funny you bring up Kantbot. Nikki was just having a little beef with the man himself. Yo, shout out to Brandy. Shout out Brandy. Can we get some 07s for my best friend in chat? Brandy literally saved my life in many ways. Brandy took a face from the ancient gallery and decided to put the mask on Ace. And there I was coming out of paleoconservatism, coming out of, you know, this kind of lost, deracinated Zoomer, stumbling through the forest, and in comes Brandy, pulling me with a chain out of the depths of the abyss. And he said, young Zoomer, please stop being so cringe. It's time to become who you are. Become something, you know, become a real dissident. And that's true. That's real. So shout out to Brandy in chat. Brandy has been a big inspiration, a real life example of somebody who is like disciplined, normal, and just knows the lore, knows all the stuff, and effectively kind of helped me through college. You know, I came from a community college. Me and him got into a university setting, and we just kind of, you know, bonded ever since. We knew about the dissident right. And, you know, nothing bad ever happened. Nothing bad ever, you know, there was no lolcow moments. There was no, I wanted to make sure he wasn't telling me to, like, you know, stop the show. But, you know, a big reason why I was able to do the show or get it off the ground, you know, besides Thomas, was because of Brandy. You know, Brandy was somebody that I was meeting more consistently than Thomas. And he put on all kinds of stuff. And, you know, I don't want to get too specific, but, you know, meeting somebody in person who's closer to you, identity-wise, that matters. That goes a long ways. And I didn't really have that in community college. And so when we were, well, not to get into specifics because it's a long story, and without making it to something, the idea that you have somebody that is really just like a friend, like an IRL friend that kind of gets what's going on in these different factions, and then somebody that you're seeing consistently relative to all these other, you know, like Gio, like Thomas. These are people you see every time there's an event. But he was kind of keeping me disciplined with the day-to-day stuff. So that matters. That stuff matters. College matters. And the people you meet in college matter. You know, the hippies understand that more than people probably give them credit for. So, you know, there's a counterpart to that. Us, you know, we, the conservatives, like to rail against the academia and institutions. But, you know, it was within those institutions that I met all the people that kind of got me here. Got me to kind of do this in a more normal fashion and in a less political way. So anyways, I'm glazing Brandy and chat, you know, I'm rambling, but no, I just graduated. And if I'm being honest, you know, he's a pivotal figure in my life. You know, I went from one college to another, and then me and Thomas started doing stuff. The channel got popular. And I mean, that's my adult life after high school, is me and this guy talking about Twitter, talking about real life stuff, personal stuff. And that's real. That's a real human being. Everybody else is a mutual or, you know, a coworker. But the people, you know, we were talking on the phone about, you know, you only have a handful of like your friends. And then, you know, when you're like 30 years old, whoever's around you, that's usually your people. Unless you move to another state or another job, like, yeah, you can make new friends. But, you know, the people, you know, like that dramatic intro, like to go from one phase to another, you know, that's what I'm describing. Not just like I found some guy at the bar, or I found some guy in class and he's like cool and stuff. You know, it's like you meet people at a key moment in your life when you start to get organized. You know, me and Thomas doing a show together, and then taking Twitter very seriously. And then I find out about Catherine D and Angela Nagel. And, you know, that's all of a sudden, like, I'm not a spectator. I'm like an active participant in whatever you want to call this, like a dissident rights sphere, online, Zoomers. So anyways, I'm rambling. I just said I shouldn't talk in these like very abstract, try hard ways. But anyways, I just want to give credit. You know, today I graduated officially. And yeah, this is the thank you space. This is the celebration. And it's fitting. It's fitting to have Brandy in chat because he's a true friend and put up with all of my weird, eccentric, you know, this guy helped me put up some presentations about H.P. Lovecraft, Sam Francis, and there's been all kinds of stuff happening. So my mom's watching the stream as well. Okay, well, there you go. Well, hey, that's very fitting. Yeah, no, here, let me take down the comment. But yeah. So Brandy and chat, a true friend, a pivotal friend, got me out of my I almost said my university. I almost said my college. I've done that before. I almost said the name of it. Community college, when I was kind of just doing whatever, consumer stuff. And then we finally got organized, finally got disciplined, finally started to act like adults on the university. So anyways, thank yous to Brandy, 07s in chat, a true friend, a real human being, etc., etc. Yeah, thank you, Mona. Mona giving an 07 to the real life friend. That's the worlds merging. I remember I mentioned Thomas at a outside a sushi place, and he knew who I was talking about, and that was like a surreal. There's no way somebody else I can name drop that and somebody knows what I'm talking about. This is absurd. Lomez was kind of, or I think that was Rufo. Was it Rufo or Lomez who was talking about, you meet some Twitter people IRL and they want to talk about, do you know this person? Do you know this guy? This guy's a little more fringe, this and that. Those are your real friends. Those are, that is our social capital. Gio and Thomas, like those are the people, if you meet them in real life, it's real. Catherine D talked about the Tumblr girls. They took their thing very seriously and then they got into politics. That's real. That's, it's wrong. It's ideological, but it's real. That's their group of friends. That's how they turned out. And we got ours. We got our internet mutuals, online friends. And if you go to some events, you'll see them in real life and it's legit. It's not like a Call of Duty lobby where you're all just in this big virtual fraternity. It's real human being moment. So anyways, yeah, thank you, Chess Jimmy's. And thank you, Brandy. A final thank you to Brandy, the man himself. Yeah, Gio, yeah, I'm glad Combot, we were talking about Combot when Brandy got in too, so I'm glad. This is a good timing. That's why I wanted to put the Daniela announcement at the start. Some other people in here may not vibe with that. We're already catching a lot of allegations with the e-girl stuff. All I'm saying is when we're stepping out of politics, who are you going to run into? Who are the people that are kind of fed up, want to do the art critic thing? They're into polia. They want to have that pop culture direction instead of the partisan one. It is a more feminine, beatnik counterculture movement. And some of those people right now doing that are not guys. So what? You want me to put on the suit and tie and be like, I will take my application to American Moment and I will not rest until I get my name in National Review. I will be the next Nate Hockman, shilling my views to Compact Magazine. Me and Sorab Amari are going to talk about the American dime store Nietzscheans. Can't do it. Can't do that. That's not me. And Brandy knows that's not me. Brandy understands. I did that. I did the condensed PaleoCon bit. And that's what I'm talking about, going from one phase to another. He saw me in this very partisan phase. What am I going to do with that? Am I going to bark ideology at what? College students and Twitter mutuals? Am I going to do a long thread about how the fall of Rome is very similar to the American decadence sweeping the nation? I can't do it. Where's my hold on. You want me to talk about this? Is this what you want me to talk about? Chat? Is this who I am? Am I an Arctos collaborator? Is this what the show is all about? Or is it about this? Or is it about this? Is this what we're talking about? No, not that one, not that book. But or is it about this? Or is it about this? You make the choice. You tell me. You tell me what really meshes well with a Zoomer, Did I meet Brandy because, we're both in... Get these envelope, dude. We got to get these envelope books out of here. It's just one, by the way. It's just one, but this is not who we are. Those books will sit on your shelf. You will not read them. They will not be relevant when you explain who you are in a job interview. Not that it's all about the wage cucking, but that will not help you when you're like talking to regular people. And so if that's not the baseline, then it's not you. You don't have to watch those video essays. You don't have to read all these threads that come on your timeline, because that's not what we're here for. right? We are not talking about this or this. We're talking about this. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So anyways, it's not to counter-signal our book sales and our book cats and our intellectual nibbas. It's not to throw shade. But we're talking about a Gen Z pop culture movement here. We're talking about Geo. All right. We're talking about people that really overlap with our content. So the ideology is not the thing. Solar, what's going on, man? Disavow. Solar, I think may have heard me say some very troubling things about, I think I was talking to the communists and they were saying, they were trying to like discern between like the BAP faction and the Groypers. And I think I kind of gave the BAP sphere a little bone, and Solar, I think, was there for that. And I was like, uh-oh. Is this gonna become a problem? I was just trying to be honest. I was just trying to be diplomatic. But anyways. So that's that. That's what do we got here? The Doors were woke on the Hollywood question. Well, is that true? I don't know about all that. We got to talk about Jim Morrison, Geo. Maybe you and I got to get back on the show together. We still haven't set up the Thomas episode. Maybe we got to do that. Ken Kesey, excuse me, was an interesting cat. Yeah, maybe there's some salvageable guys there. That sounds, what the sounds and aesthetics are what we want, but without the baggage. Yeah, exactly. And it's not to like, it's not to be like try hard about it. It's or to lie either. Like I don't want to lie and say like the hippies are secretly based. I'm not trying to imply that. Or it's okay when they do certain things. You know, again, still not okay. I'm just saying I would like a counterculture movement that's friendly to Zoomers, that's artistic, and isn't gatekept by millennials. That's what I'm saying. And maybe it's not really in the Zoomers' nature to put together a zine, because we didn't have those growing up. We're not nostalgic for the 90s culture. We didn't live through it fully. So I understand the millennials are going to be the ones that do I Am 1776, Passage Press, publishing stuff. We're still college-age people, probably grinding out, trying to make money. So we don't kind of have that entrepreneurial thing going. But the millennials do, and that's cool. But their movement is very political in a lot of ways. And, you know, you pull up to one of their IRL events, like I have, and again, I'm a guest, wandering through the crowd. I'm the Wojak in the corner. Where are the Zoomers? Do Zoomers have it in them to put on a cool event? Dalton was kind of talking about, you know, maybe we could do stuff like that. Paul Allen, maybe. But we don't have a lot of examples to go off of. Besides college tours and all this, you know, 2016 era stuff. But, you know, somebody's got to go out there and get their counterculture and faction going and stay out of trouble. Do it optically and don't let it be so political. And, you know, that's what Patriot Jam's all about. Patriot Jam, July 27th. We're trying to throw a Zoomer-friendly counterculture party, a mini festival, a mini Woodstock in the Tennessee area. Nobody's doing stuff like that in our sphere. Dime Square doesn't even put... Well, Dime Square kind of does. They kind of do, to be fair. It's more of like a different demographic style. But that's all I'm saying. We got to bring that. My Californians, we got to bring that LA culture and spread it abroad. One day at a time, perhaps. Curious how you described this stuff to a bunch of tankies. Yeah, I don't think that was recorded. I can condense that right now if that's okay. I mean, that's kind of what this stream is for. I was talking with some guys, and from their perspective, okay, I want to be fair, and maybe we can tag her in chat. It's Friday, right? Some of these guys should be busy, not busy, rather. Let's. Oh my goodness! So we got another event in Texas, a festival with. Oh my goodness! See, this is what I'm talking about. Jimmy Dore, Anna Kachin, Max Blumenthal, Trey. Yeah, here we're gonna get to that in a second. Okay, so there's been a kind of a change recently in the Dime Square scene. We like to talk about the Red Scare girls, but there's some very interesting developments happening. Let me do one thing at a time here. Oh, Howard, if you're still tuning in, thank you, man. Congratulations, congrats on the excuse me, two shuns. Congrats on the graduation. I'll reserve judgment on the upcoming collab. Yeah, okay, so you heard that. Listen, I'm never gonna beat these allegations, folks. I'm sorry. You're gonna have to just bear with me. You're just please. You're just gonna have to hold on a sec here. So here, let me tag her because I don't want to. Oh, hold on. Oh, I can't share things right now. Hold on. No pains. Because here's the thing. Because we're not so ideological anymore, we're able to kind of... never mind. The tagging's good enough. You're watching me like get... This is me trying to send a tweet and do too many things at once. Okay. Because I want to be fair. I want to be fair because I'm not I'm not super partisan. I don't even tweet posts. I reserve that to Dudley. But how many people do we have on YouTube? Is this 14? All right. Okay. Sorry about all that. So what's been going on? Everybody gets what I'm doing here, probably, maybe not. The art critic theme, talking about the dissident right in a more cultural direction rather than political, blah, blah, blah. So I'm sharing this implicitly with all these people. Daniela, who did I say? Dudley. The Dudley thing is like a gonzo journalist Substack, effectively. The Daniela thing we're talking about, e-girls, but not in this very partisan way. And then with Nikki's got a Discord server, which is, I don't know if Haas is actually in there, but it's, the IGG crew, Infrared or something. And that's Jackson Hinkle and Haas, and they got their brand going on, talking about Marxist-Leninism in a multipolar world, calling out the globalists, calling out the bankers from a left-wing perspective. And so they're sympathetic to Palestine, Palestinians. You guys probably see their stuff on the timeline. So obviously we're on the right, we're reactionary, but there's that overlap because of what's been going on recently. So I got invited because she wanted to talk to some right-leaning Zoomers types. And so I was basically questioned about that. But Nikki's been very cordial, inviting me onto Twitter Spaces. And usually they go all over the place. People are arguing about communism and, people are arguing about, I don't know, just political stuff and what did Marx really mean and all that. But, people... I'm in there and I'm kind of the lone representative with a lot of these people. And so whenever I say something, there seems to be a more aggressive tone. This one guy, I think his name was Wolf Communist or Communism. He was pushing back because that was more about the political stuff. When I was pitching the art critic thing, we were talking about like the music industry and how there's not a lot of, it's not very timeless. It's very commercial and corporate. And the usual conservative take, Hollywood is woke. The music industry is not the way it used to be, not just in terms of quality, but like the people that become celebrities, like Adorno and all these Frankfurt School types, when they would talk about the culture industry, they're talking about like the structure of American pop culture. The high culture and the low culture are sold kind of to the same audience. So, not to make it all about that, but once upon a time, you would get a Jim Morrison, or you would get a Steve Perry, or you would get Eddie Van Halen. And you kind of have this Ubermensch type demographic in these counterculture scenes. And now what do you get? You get people like Jackson Hinkle and Haas and all those types. So, I was tuning into this Jim Morrison interview, I think like 1970-ish, and he said something that is still relevant today. He said, I don't know, like in the 30s, you had like jazz musicians and boxers, and in the 40s, you had actors, and, and I don't know all the people he listed, but like in the 50s, obviously you have rock and roll, Elvis, Jerry Lee Lewis, Eddie Cochran. And to me, that's us. That's our kind of shtick. It's artistic. It's not overtly political. If anything, it's conservative coded and nationalistic because it's like a Southern rock type. But then Morrison says in the 60s, what's been more normalized now is the new role models for young people are political activists, people that write books about, where the West went wrong. And, he's even saying some very paused things about, when you repress people's sexual capacity, that's where you're able to have kind of an authoritarian regime. This is all Frankfurt School talking points. So again, kind of unfortunate to have him say that, but the point to bring that up is that's still relevant today. And the Zoomers, what it means to be like a young person today still means what it meant in the 60s. You have to care about politics. Political identity is hegemonic. Religious values seem to be sidelined for a lot of people. Secular culture seems to be just as influential, if not more, than the underlying religious tenets that are supposed to govern the society. So, I'm not saying it all like that in this space. I'm kind of being hyperbolic and saying things like, back then you had a certain class of drug addicts and they would make this, crazy music. Now you get drug addicts and they make this computer manufactured beats and it's just completely studio driven. And so you don't really get an authentic grassroots CBGB scene. And you look at New York and you don't have things like Max's Kansas City because you don't have a vitalistic punk rock scene. You don't have men and women competing for the same stage in the same subculture. Obviously we have aggressive music. We have masculine music. We have drug addicts. We have the vices of the 60s. But all of that, poetry and, Arthur Rimbaud and, all these, the philosophy side of the 60s seems to have been lost. The beatnik legacy seems to have been replaced by Allen Ginsberg and all these partisan takedowns of the Western canon, so to speak. And that's a tragedy. That's a tragedy that is what gets written in the history books. We don't seem to have a lot of young people that cling towards that 50s culture, not just the rock and roll musically, but to those authors, Kerouac, and the early kind of rugged individualists, not in the political context, but these people that were traveling all over the country, that kind of entrepreneurial go-getter can-doism. We talk about how Zoomers like can't even leave the house seemingly. And these guys are telling me like, dude, you're so black-pilled. Like young people are doing stuff all the time. Just go on a college campus, like find your friends. They're there. And that's true. That's true. Maybe that's part of the reason why we should push back against the anti-academia stance. Because, that's where the social capital can be claimed. You can get that out of it. And it's like, yes, but, the Robert Putnam thesis, the Charles Murray, the Sam Huntington, once we live in the post-Cold War era, people are just going to cling to these primitive identities and they're not really going to have a very intellectually philosophical outlook after the Cold War. They're not going to really see their fellow Americans as like part of the same team. You know, we're living in a postmodern society and all that. And yeah, like that has to be addressed. You know, there has to be social capital, the way that Thomas talks about this internet stuff. Even if it's dissident and there's a social cost for talking about it out loud, okay, don't talk about the politics out loud. But all you guys who like Man's World magazine and like this art critic direction that people like Lomez harp on, you guys can put together a little something in your area, or make your own little art scene, or you know, just put together something like Patriot Jam, and you know, make a zine, do something, you know, do the thing that this guy who's pushing back against me, he was saying, like, people can still do this, like, just do it yourself. But that's my point, is that DIY mindset seems to have been colonized out of Zoomers. We wait for somebody else to take the lead, or somebody has to tell us that these things are going on. That was my point. The fact that there is a laziness in a lot of people my age, including myself. So to kind of have this optimistic look at like, well, dude, just like go outside and touch grass, man. Like social capital can be booming any day now, you know? That reminds me of when people say like, dude, there's still music festivals like Coachella and Lollapalooza. And it's funny, I think it was Brandy's mom who was telling me, when I went over to his house, she was telling me like, the people are not there for the music. You know, that's for Instagram. That's for the social media. And it's like, yes, exactly. That's my point. It's just not the same. We have nihilistic music. We have technology, and we have quote unquote social capital with our peers, but it's all at an arm's length. It's all digital. It's not like the hippies. It's not like the communes. It's not like all these authors that are putting jazz in writing form. We have lost. The West has fallen. Don't you know? That's what I was trying to say. And they were just telling me like, you know, it can still happen. Don't worry. And maybe they're right. Directionally, they're right. Like, yes, just go out there and do it yourself instead of complaining about it. True. But, you know, we have to address that whole thing. Making beats. Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. Excuse me. You know, I'm kind of a boomer in that regard, but you know what I mean to say. Matteo, I don't know who that is. Should have ditched the guitar and started producing beats. Maybe. But you know, that's why I like Lana Del Rey. Lana Del Rey on the Ultraviolence record, she brought in that Black Keys guitarist, and you can totally tell on the album, it's very different than Born to Die. It's very different than Honeymoon. So, you know, there's ways to integrate the old rock and roll into modern music. I'm not black-pilled on that. That's where the real boomer truth is, this perspective that like, oh, it's all gone. You should just check out all these bands from the 80s that are still touring, you know, if that's where you want your heavy metal and hard rock. It's like, no, like we're supposed to inherit that decade. We're supposed to. But, you know, like, you know, a lot of people my age, they're illiterate. They don't know the culture. They weren't educated in that sphere. We weren't culturally educated. We were politically educated. So there's not a lot of spaces for people like my age to find out all that lore, except here, right? So that's what I mean to say. I understand I was being kind of tongue-in-cheek about the whole thing, and I was saying all this exaggerating stuff about like, you know, they were telling me like I was defending hedonism, and I'm defending the 60s romanticism. Goethe doesn't like that stuff. If you want to believe in reality itself, it's not in romanticism. That is a bunch of hedonistic people, like basically doing the Greek thing, having just a giant party, not believing in morals, not behaving in a very virtuous manner. It's a distraction. The real vitality is in classical music. And I think there's something to that. But rock and roll, I was trying to be like, nah, but rock and roll is so relevant to our type of niche interest. Rock and roll is counterculture, it's revolutionary. And rock music defined popular music, like all of American popular music for so long, along with pop. Like that's how we get here as Americans, as 21st century Americans. We're not jazz aficionados. We're not connoisseurs of big band. It was about getting us out of that, getting us out of the boomer generation and the greatest generation, and finding something more individualistic, niche, counterculture, but also very romantic and edgy. That's what draws me into the beatniks. Maybe I'm repeating myself and I'm being annoying at this point. But that's what I was trying to articulate, and they're like, oh, this is all liberal, this is all... And they're kind of right. A lot of it is liberal, and no sex, no drugs, just rock and roll. Maybe we got to have some type of catchphrase to... And, Dalton gets that kind of criticism with his Howard Stern, tendencies. Like, his show is very raunchy. It's very adult. And so people might say, what does this have to do with a right-wing political movement? And it's like, well, there has to be an entertainment part of this movement. And as long as you're not making jokes or saying things that go against Catholic doctrine, then there's probably nothing inherently wrong with having a kind of comedic, eccentric show to counterweight the more partisan streams that are uncozy. So, but there's not, the political stuff in the DR completely outweighs all the other stuff. Besides in the BAP sphere. In the BAP sphere, they do have a nice balance of art criticism, pop culture commentary. But it's all millennials. So, it's like if you pull up to like your older brother's graduation, it's like the celebration is not really, oh, but I like these guys, but they're based. It's like, okay, but it's not my people. You know what I mean? Obviously, there's some other disagreements. But that's the point I'm trying to say. And, there needs to be a Zoomer counterpart. And, I'm impressed. I'm impressed by a lot of the millennials and a lot of the stuff they do. But a lot of it is guys older than me. So you're a little bit on the outside, you understand? Literally making beats on a laptop and uploading it to SoundCloud, then in a live performance, you literally just hit play on the laptop you made the beats with. Yeah. No, that's the thing. That's what I'm trying to say to these communists, and they're just like, maybe they're kind of the real conservatives. They're telling me, like, return to classical music. It's like, maybe they're right. The beatniks were a bit addled. Kerouac did not understand jazz. Ginsberg. Well, Ginsberg, yeah, we disavow Ginsberg. Ginsberg's not our guy. But that's kind of just to put into, what do you call it? To have, what am I trying to say? A counterpart to the things we would like Kerouac. But anyways, is any of this coming across well? The old masters were chasing those sounds just like people chase sounds today with pedal effects. Yeah. The truth is that there is, in part, in the classical music. Listen. Okay, interesting. Maybe. But yeah, man. Radlib and Horse made a new video, which to me is the end of political talk. America firmly secured in all angles. Openings will come culturally first. Use the momentum for legal change. There you go. Thank you, Mona. Mona gets it. The end of politics. But anyways, that's what I was trying to say. Do we got any people on Twitter barging down our door? Where can I get the details for Patriot Jam? Oh, sorry for all the... All right, let me get the... Yeah, let's get that while we got our audience. How many people here? 15? All right, now's a good time to... Where's the... Oh, gosh, this is all messed up. You see all this? Dude, it's over. Yikes, department. There we go. This is all curly. Yeah, let's get the Patriot Jam links up there. Patriot Jam 2024. What do we got? Is it right here? So we're probably going to get some more updates in the time coming, but let's share streams. Share screens. Screens. Excuse me. Oh, whoops. Simple but not so long name. What's going on, man? Did you come from the downfall network era? Let me know in chat. Yeah, man, I've been busy. Graduating college, doing some Substack content, and I guess putting together a music festival. So this is Patriot Jam 2024. Maybe you got some familiar names in there. This will be July 27th. July 27th. Howard, if you're here, check out. If you're in the Tennessee area, pull up. It's going to be a fun time. And there should be more stuff like this. We need more people that are having fun, doing music type events, getting us out of politics, etc., etc. Everything we've been saying early on. So that's that. I can put that in chat as well. Are we getting DMs during the show? Okay, it looks like we're good. We can put this in chat here. Did that go through? Oh, sorry about that. There's the link, and there will be details as we get closer to the date, which is July 27th. So it's fun. It's going to be fun. And very rare. So anyways, we can pull up our Dudley New Right, new content, to get you an idea of some of the counterculture commentary we're trying to get involved with. Here's a little example. Here we can... So for those that don't know, we got a little newsletter, effectively a little, what do you call it? Like National Enquirer, a little propaganda outlet to get everybody the TLDR for the DR. I thought that was clever. We have a way to condense all of the stuff on the timeline into written form. So if you can't make one of the A spaces, or you're not quite caught up with everything, then this is a new way to do so. So this is New Right Post. It's a Substack up here. And I picked some week to get involved with all this stuff because, of course, there was the Lomez doxing by The Guardian. And then you have some infighting with the Dime Square scene from some Zoomer partisans. So it was a very apropos time to get into this kind of space in written format officially, because we talk about it a lot. It's on this stream, but this is my outlet, so nobody's going to pick a fight with me on my little YouTube channel. But now, New Right Post, he interviews people on his podcast. He talks about it explicitly under his name. So now, fresh-faced NRP intern Ace to take the reins. Well, so what did I talk about? Well, in I Am 1776, which is a dissident right magazine, there's all kinds of stuff in there: philosophy, politics, current event news, and there's all kinds of stuff that is really conducive to this channel. You can talk about art criticism. They had that one call to action where they wanted more artsy types to get involved with the magazine. And, to me, that's very key. I think Lomez kind of alluded to that in the Christopher Rufo space when he was saying, this is the kind of thing that made him want to do something like Passage Press or do things a little bit differently in the DR. And so that's encouraging. It's cool that you have people thinking like that. But of course, that comes with some ideological loyalty pledges. And, some of that was maybe in this Michael Millerman piece. There was another one that was a little more pro, taking stances on the recent campus protests. This one I thought was funny because he kind of lays out the fact that the original hippies that were revolting on campus were at least more well-read. Because what does he say here? As someone commented on my recent video reading of an essay of Bloom, that's Alan Bloom, the writer, Closing of the American Mind. Students going from gender theory to protesting the most televised genocide is a big win. Maybe Bloom misses the mark of these protests. So students don't know Weber, Nietzsche, Plato, Rousseau, or Heidegger. Well, to channel a second criticism, maybe Bloom, like Strauss, is just a Jewish ethno-narcissist, and anyone who invokes him at this time against students protesting Israeli atrocities is complicit in genocide. So, I think Millerman has kind of maybe not our exact stance on everything that's going on, but because he throws in some of the archetypes, the fact that you have, rough housing on the campus, and there's some 60s parallels there that maybe Rufo would glue into. I thought that was an interesting, rather, paragraph. And then what we talk about with the boomer truth, Michael Millerman reminds Zoomers they can finally experience the boomer dream of rioting on campus, embracing psyops, and tearing off their clothes for politics with lower stakes. So a lot of kind of fun commentary on all this stuff. Scott Greer talked about welfare. That was a little more serious. Nate Hockman talked about Jeremy Carl, who's been putting out this book about anti-white stuff. That's, again, kind of in our old milieu, our old concerns with the original PaleoCon tone. Lomez getting doxxed. And then, which one is this? Which one is this about? Oh, this is just about climate change. Very, very serious hat. Chris talking about Jason Wilson. Yeah, the fact that the left will collaborate with Antifa types just to get one over on our guys. What else is new? This was about what else? Is there anything else like really relevant here? This one was about race. That's kind of in the old race realism type talk. Here we go. Rachel Haywire. And, kind of more to our point from earlier. Remember all those books we were told to check out? Rachel Haywire gives us the TLDR for the DR. Unfortunately, we cannot keep clinging to the ideology of the bygone eras. Conservatism, classical liberalism. Haywire wants us to embrace Bowden-esque liberty by stepping over these latest rebrands of modernism. The DR can make it. They just have to escape the commentators lulling them back to different subgenres of liberalism. And maybe that applies to some of the people listed above. Maybe that applies to all these people who are still talking about things from 2018, 2019, all the stuff that Aaron McIntyre would do videos of, maybe does videos of right now, because now he's like a pundit. I don't really see us as closer to that side. We're closer to a more art critic type, like Rachel Haywire. And then this was the Old Glory Club. The Old Glory Club, who is going to have their event upcoming, talking about the end of the Boy Scouts. So anyways, that was our contribution to Substack. It's a long way coming. We've been trying to get that going for a while. And, that's the kind of, lighthearted commentary that we're trying to kind of get people familiar with. We're not over here trying to be like seriously dissecting everybody's ideologies. Jeremy Carl wants to kind of build off of the Christopher Caldwell book. Well, we're not here for that. We're not here to put all the ideologies on a spectrum and then react to it. Who's the real dissident? So that's kind of the difference there. Oh, did I miss like drunks being derived of their bottle? Maybe. Rachel Haywire, ex-friend of Ann S. Who's that? Oh, did I miss some of your guys' chats here? Sorry about that. Congrats on the position. Well, thank you. Thank you, Par. I appreciate that. Yeah, give me what's the lore with Rachel Haywire and her friend? I'm not too familiar with her, but I thought she was interesting. Oh, Anna's. Okay, my comments might be messing up a little bit. Okay, well, that's interesting. That's interesting to know. The boomers were so intoxicated by the hedonistic throb of black music that they go into a panic when presented with any argument that might call the postmodern project into question. Maybe, because that's kind of what Zach was telling me, is a lot of that music, some of the music kind of has a lineage to the same lineage as jazz and blues. But rock and roll, there may be a case where that's more of a Southern rock thing. But you're saying to tell boomers that, like they're kind of mimicking black culture. And then if you call it postmodern, I don't know. I don't know if that's totally correct, because I guess I'm a little biased. But that's kind of the Evola thesis, right? The idea that all of it is derivative. Jazz, blues, and rock and roll is all coming from this hedonistic pantomiming of black culture. But that's interesting. Sometimes I think I'm too attached to the world and my preferred art media. Like, any arguments I make for it are just rationalizations. Well, I think, like, what was it? When Keith Woods and Nick were talking with Sneeko was saying something to the effect of, from his Muslim perspective, a lot of music is, I think, effectively heretical. Like, even music that doesn't explicitly talk about hedonistic things, maybe it's a form of a psyop. I'm butchering. I think I might be butchering Sneeko's explanation of it, but it caused a back and forth between Nick and Keith, where Keith was the one kind of harping on it seems to be such a key part of the human experience that there has to be some, like Roger Scruton says, there has to be something that embodies the beautiful. And just because we've lost that doesn't mean we can't have a type of appreciation, like a kind of conservative nostalgia for beautiful things back then. I don't know if some people would say like all forms of physical art are suspect, but I don't know. There seems to be a way to reconcile the religious goals and then the artistic ones. Because I know I'd go crazy without some of my media, but like you said, maybe I'm rationalizing it. That's where I'm open. I'm open to having like a disavowal of Jim Morrison and some of the post 60s rock that got like I said, when he's parroting the Frankfurt School talking points, it's like, I don't know if there's much I can do to help him there. He kind of put himself on an island with that one. But everything else, trying to apply the poetry to rock music, and then having this kind of theater approach to rock and roll. I don't know if there's anything about that that's heretical or leaning too much into like a pagan type, art expression. I think maybe it's the intention is, something relevant here. But I don't know. I don't know exactly where to draw the line. The Renaissance men and the Romanticists. I got to read more Goethe. I got to read more art criticism to see where they're coming at it from. Because some might try to salvage some of their counterculture figures for political reasons. But I'd like us to kind of find our people, find our philosophers, find our artsy types that aren't going to try to subvert our religion. So all of that is an attempt. I'm trying to extend an olive branch to those types, but it's tough. It's tough because it seems like everything is a suspect. You don't know what all these people are writing about. Rock music has its moments. of the transcendence. In fact, I found Alan Bloom's dismissals a bit. Okay, that's interesting. Well, maybe I got to read some more. I got to read some Closing of the American Mind. You know, it's funny. I found that in a Halloween store. That book was in a, you got all these masks and outfits and stuff. And then you just got this, there's like a bookshelf or something. And sitting there is Alan Bloom's book. It just seems kind of random. Metal, rock. Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, like I get some religious anxiety about certain metal. So it is what it is. Anyways. That's funny. Finding some interesting things on the timeline. But yeah, that's been our priority for the past week. Been doing some interesting stuff, and it's been fun times. But yeah, that's pretty much been the Substack content, the writing content. It's becoming real. It's happening. And more to come. So I'm white-pilled. And next month is AFPAC. We're in the post-graduation era. So it's weird. It's a weird feeling. There's kind of like a weird liberation, but also kind of like melancholy, kind of directionless. Very chaotic. Do you get any religious anxiety from the Beatles? Not really. But politically, they're just cringe. Like just as your standard hippies, you're seduced by Indian visits. It's just like, that's just not really my type of music or people. Are you going to AFPAC? Yeah. Going to be stopping by. Maybe I'll see some of you guys there. If Just Jimmy's is still here. Can't wait for that. I'm excited. Yeah, I don't... Willie's going to be there, really. Okay, well, tell me. Everybody that's going, you got to tell me, like, your username. I'll probably vaguely remember your guys' names. So help me out with that, all right? IVN? All right. Well, hey, let's get the Loud Sound Epicenter chatters. Let's get a little mini meetup, all right? Yeah, I'm not too partisan against the Beatles, like, publicly. Dalton likes the Beatles. The Beatles have a lot of aesthetics to them. And they did change rock music, of course. But a lot of their stuff is just not really my thing. A lot of it is kind of pop. And, that's where the Doors is very vivid to me. Elvis is very vivid. It's a real breaking away. Elvis breaking away from big band, the Doors from the San Francisco scene. It's different. But, I'm not going to lie. The White Album goes hard. What is it? The End from Abbey Road and Helter Skelter. What else? What is it? She's So Heavy. What is it? I Want You So Bad. It's driving me mad. With the bass, with the little bass in the middle. No, it's cool. I'm not gonna be a uptight critic about it. Again, you should never let, even with rap, don't ever let it bum you out if people are vibing to it. It's cool. It is cool music. But again, just as far as, what is the model moving forward? I'm going to stick to the counterculture rock. I'm going to stick to kind of the anti-hippie theme. I met Ray Manzarek. Yo, let's go. Ray Manzarek seems to be like the spokesman for the Doors. Like he was the one, he survived the 60s. And whenever there's any stories about Jim, he's the one, even though Robbie Krieger is alive, Ray seems to be the spokesman. And he seemed to be the one that kind of understood the Doors philosophically. He seemed to be the one who always, like, you could put a camera in front of him and he'd be ready. He'd be ready to explain what's happening. So that's cool. And it's interesting. It may have been him who tried to clarify. People try to say break through to the other side, all this chaotic 60s talk from Morrison. People try to frame that as like a communist call to action political slogan. And it may have been Ray who said what he was doing was trying to talk about that inner chaos, that liberation from within to express yourself authentically. It's more of a poetry statement or a, building off of romantic philosophy rather than this partisan thing that a lot of the people at the same time were talking about: sexual revolution, libertinism. Was it William Blake that the Doors' name was pulled from? Yeah, it's the Huxley book, The Doors of Perception, which is taken from the William Blake. So, yeah. Huxley is also very sus. That's the other part. Like the Doors, I love the Doors musically, but that's where we got to be careful. Huxley, I think Jay Dyer might be onto something when he talks about Huxley. A lot of that seems to be very misleading, and it's kind of a dead end. He became a big GOP guy, Hoover Institute. Are you serious? That you got to be joking. There's no way that's real. There's no way that he actually became a Hoover. I just find that very hard to believe. I get that they're both in Cali, but Ray Manzarek? Maybe I'm misunderstanding you. Okay, where did I mislead you? He became a big GOP guy. There's just no way. Sowell's novel was about Bloom, a literary oddity, but with enough insight to make a rational person doubt Bloom. Interesting. Well, Manzarek was on board for... Interesting. Bohemian Grove. Have you read Weird Scenes? Inside the Can. I haven't read all of it. I found some PDF a while ago. Maybe it was a shortened version. I never watched all of it. Yeah, the CIA stuff, I find that to be very misleading. I don't know if that's totally true. I mean, it's a fun thought experiment. It's a way for people to like be skeptical of all counterculture movements like the hippies, and it was all influenced from the top down, just like the civil rights movement. But I don't know if like literally everybody, like a lot of people back then just had connections to the military. I don't think that that's very suspect. It was a different time. We're coming out of like Eisenhower's America. But maybe I'm being naive. It is weird though. It is a very, like the Morrison thing specifically with the Gulf of Tonkin. Yeah, it's that I'll give you that one, but to me that's very like Carol Quigley, conspiratorial. The Anglo establishment. It comes across like that. So I would take it with a grain of salt. I would say, like, yeah, obviously there's plants and there's controlled opposition within the 60s counterculture, but people kind of use that to say, like, all of this cool stuff that speaks to the youth. Well, stop right there. That's all part of the government, man. I'm even pretty skeptical about MK Ultra, if I'm being honest. Like, to me, there's got to be some limiting principle on, not that we would put it past the government to do stuff like that. And someone like Ted Kaczynski is, an example of like an actual example of, something weird, radicalizing him or, getting to him at an early age. But all this other stuff, like to me, that's kind of in the same category as this Stanford experiment. The government's doing weird stuff, but I don't want to replace the historicism with all of this like David McGowan digging. I don't know if we're really going to get anywhere like productive with that. But it's fun to talk about. You know, I don't want to disavow it. I don't know if I buy it. Was in the military at some point. Yeah, exactly. Just Jimmy's. Yeah, exactly. That's how I feel. I'm just not. I don't know if that really says a whole lot. Bass guitarist, you said this reforming marijuana laws. Is that pro or anti? Advocates for the reform of marijuana laws in the United States regarding both. So this is like a anti-marijuana law. So what is this? Treating drug abuse as health issue rather than a criminal issue. Yeah, I was kind of surprised. Like Jim Morrison was more of a drinker than allegedly more of a drinker than into all this like psychedelic stuff, which is kind of ironic. That helps my case, if that's true. It helps my case that all of this, I was reading something about like Bob Dylan and John Lennon. Those were the Beatles introduced drugs to Bob Dylan. That's like a foreign infiltration of our American rock or folk, our American music scene. And if we could pin all the drugs on, the Beatles and the folk, the Woodstock types, Grateful Dead, but not our guys, not our LA people, that would be a very subversive dig that might work. But, I don't know if that's totally accurate. Obviously, a lot of the other members seem like Ray, I'm sure, was very into all that. But maybe Morrison, we could kind of see him as like an old degenerate, like we were saying earlier, a drinking guy. Well, just like the Riders and the Beatniks. Libertarian thing. Okay. The craziest one is Jeff Baxter from Steely Dan. Is that right? Leary may have been a plant. Yeah, see, all the like LSD stuff. I think that's what Jay Dyer talks about. All that stuff came from the government. The government is talking about LSD on Time magazine. Allegedly, a establishment rag is going to go out of its way to promote straight up counterculture, like mind altering drugs. That's a little fishy. Yeah, Timothy Leary is a possible plant. That it would not be surprising that he would jump at the chance to promote himself with a big boost from the deep state. Yeah, maybe. What's your issue with psychedelics? Well, I'm Catholic, so from a religious perspective, I don't really see drugs as a very effective way to find your identity. To me, there is no, there is spirit and there's body, but trying to use something else as a mediator or as something to kind of reveal something to yourself manually, I feel like that's very subversive. And that's not necessary. To me, that's what music can do. Maybe music can give you the, in Hegelian terms, the absolute knowing. It can give you a kind of, it can make things mentally clear, to butcher a phrase, rather than trying to use drugs as this vehicle for knowledge. I just feel like that's an unnecessary step in this quest for identity. But I got to read more of those guys. I got to read more Tom Wolfe and, their specific claims. Time magazine did an article on them in like 1967. Yeah, like all the CIA reports about remote viewing and aliens seems like fake disinformation. Yeah, exactly. It seems like History Channel tier stuff. Seems like a safe conspiracy theory. Bear from the Grateful Dead, very sus. Maybe. Why? Because the music's bad? No, but yeah, maybe there's a wedge there. Well, that's funny. Well, hey, thank you guys. This is what the space is supposed to be. It's not supposed to be super nitty gritty and weird. We're supposed to have fun and talk about pop culture. Because, maybe this wasn't clear from the last space, but, what does the DR really have to do with art criticism? That seems to be an obsession of e-girls that like Polya, Nietzsche. Well, to me, the DR has its roots in something like the early literary movement of the 50s and 60s, because they're the ones talking, like Burroughs talks about technology And kind of having that sci-fi perspective seems to be relevant to guys who like Nick Land and the people that would end up being, I just feel like it's less political and more cultural when the dissident right is criticizing the West and the state of things. So, to me, and the fact that allegedly they read all these books and they're these, critics from, a grassroots reactionary culture, that kind of explains what was going on in the 50s. Those were bookworms that were talking about ideas and talking about identity in this nihilistic age. It's all very palatable for people like me and everybody in the DR. So, have you read Neuromancer series, classic cyberpunk? No. So I think somebody was trying to I think Pill Eater was trying to get me onto that. I got to check that out. Is that the one with they're going to try to install anime eyes into women? Japan is going to colonize Silicon Valley in this allegedly utopic West Coast imperium. That's like Johnny Mnemonic and all these like The Beach with Leonardo DiCaprio, all these like 90s techno dystopia things. Now, I should definitely get into some of that stuff. That'd be fun. But anyways, that's basically all I got. I guess I kind of just went off a little bit, but kind of just gave you a little update of what's going on. Yeah, what's the deal? Like, what's the angle? What's the angle with Silicon Valley tech utopianism? Is it a critique? Is it like Blade Runner? Like, this is what might happen? I don't know, like what are the ideological points they're trying to make? I don't know. I haven't read those books. But if you could help me out, if you could condense it a little bit for me, that would help. Oh. But anyways, I'm probably going to wrap up, though. Probably going to wrap up and have a cozy Friday afternoon. Probably go into Twitter Space. And, I probably shouldn't be streaming. I shouldn't be, like, streaming on graduation day. I should be out there having fun. Within reason, I should be out hanging out with friends. So, I'll probably wrap it up. Para, if you have any, if you can help me out with Neuromancer, that'd be cool. But with that, we'll just be doing our thing. Dudley New Right's going to be helping us, doing some Substack content. And even though a certain collaboration may be controversial, I think it'll be relevant for our brand. And it'll be getting us out of our usual partisan infighting stuff. I guess I'll end it with the dime square drama. Is that all right? How many people do we got in here? It's a lot of navigating the underworld of a utopia dystopia with AI lurking in the background. Okay. So kind of, Blade Runner stuff. That's cool. How many people do we got in here? Okay. Congrats again. Why am I getting... Oh, dude, I'm missing some of your guys' chat. Congrats again. Well, thank you, Bass Guitarist, if you're still here. Thank you for the thank yous, for the congrats. Those radical chic evenings, etc. Wolf was as much a thorn in the side of Kesey as he was to Leonard Bernstein. Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. Have a nice rest of your Friday, Simple. Yeah, Simple, are you from the Downfall days? Let me know. Let me know if you are. And if not, maybe we got to link up on Twitter. Okay. I just want to make sure I didn't miss your guys' chats from earlier. Or more now. You are. That's so crazy, man. That's crazy how... Just Jimmy's too. Just Jimmy's too. Crazy how that happens. Whoops. But All right, well, let's get into some of the drama. Is that all right? We're not supposed to be partisan here, but maybe it's necessary. Are my comments, am I using like the wrong... What is this? I don't know what's going on there. Anyways, so we'll wrap this up. Gosh, a guy from the Downfall Network days, and now I'm going to talk about the Red Scare girls. That really summarizes my community college to graduation, arc. That really does say a lot. But anyways, so Dudley Newright is a square guy, and I mean that as in like he's disciplined and has, he's not a partisan activist. He's not going to get in the middle of something to chase clout. So him talking about a lot of this stuff is fair. You would like to think journalists are impartial. And so some of these rare people that are aware of it and don't step in, like those are my types of people. In the millennial faction, outside of it, those are my kind of people. Those are the nice allies of Loud Sound Epicenter. But what's been happening recently is there's been some infighting. There's been some people in the Dime Square scene, which is Anna Kachian, Dasha Nekrasova, and they've been gaining some critics. And you've had critics like Zuki Man, Keyboard Zog, and Basil or Basil. May makes fun of me when I don't know what the pronunciation is. I'm not too familiar with this content. But there's critics. There's people that, are not really fond of people in the dissident right, trying too hard to make a cultural movement. These are not the right people to do it with. The parts need to be replaced. The attitude is in the right direction. People like Lomez are going in the right direction, but the Red Scare girls, all these broads do is have a podcast and integrate people who aren't actually right-wing. They're not dissident and they're not right-wing. So what use are they? But as Dudley Newright, accurately points out, the Red Scare girls are the ones that have probably had the most success out of anybody in this whole faction. I don't know if it's my place to say who kind of said that out loud at one of these IRL events, but you kind of think about the real life examples that have come about in the past few years. People, the White Lotus show being inspired by Anna and Dasha. The sardonic Modern Valley girl kind of making waves on this HBO show. Or what was it, HBO? And Dasha has some clout from being on that show, Succession. And so, call this what you want. These are people in New York that know about our Twitter space, that aren't disavowing, and they've platformed people like BAP and Steve Saylor. So from an outsider's perspective, it's like, isn't that exactly the type of positive press that we would want from normie types or post-liberal types? But as the critics say, the fact that these are people that are aware of our sphere, that doesn't really matter. These are still just a bunch of e-girls on the timeline who aren't dissident, aren't right-wing. Nothing physical has come about from their Dime Square scene. And so the argument goes, do we really need people like that? Were we better off before we extended an olive branch to New York, near the Chinatown district? And, there's a lot of ways to look at it. You could say, some of the company that these people keep in New York, not exactly conservative, not exactly people that hold our values or present themselves well in public. So is it an optics war in the Dime Square scene? Maybe that's what's happening. Or is it a thought war? Because one of the people that's called under questioning is somebody who's not technically a girl or an e-girl. This is a man. This is a man that's masquerading, putting on a different mask, so to speak, and socializing with people with more clout than himself. And some people say, if we're not willing to draw a line in the sand and say, look, we're not going to have these transgenders be the face or at least public association with a sphere like that, maybe the scene's going to get a little artsy, but it doesn't have to get full on trans into this ecosystem. And some people say, well, this person is not really making a lot of content. They're not really hurting or taking away from the movement. They're just kind of a periphery character, a side character. And yeah, you would expect people like that to show up at these things. I'm sure they happen in CBGBs and all these Andy Warhol type events. But some people say, look, we got to call that out. There's no way this person can be even vaguely a part of this scene. Because this person ended up in a magazine of the dissident right. So people are arguing. I tried to sign up for vitalistic, far-right art movement, and all I got was this lousy tranny clout chasing in our space. And because it's an art movement, there's not a lot of political parameters to keep this person out. So it's all very interesting. It's kind of like Calendar Gate. People complain about not creating their own content, and then when they do, they mess it up. You get all this very strange photo ops, very similar dynamic, except it's happening to Dime Square. It's happening to people who I've kind of been given some positive things to say recently. So maybe a lot of us look stupid for saying that anything good can come out of this space. And maybe so. But, it's interesting. It's interesting that things like that are coming to a head. What's been interesting is some people, even people within the BAP sphere, seem to be breaking away from it, calling it out, causing a wedge. So there's kind of a lot of perspectives being thrown out there. And do you blame? Is this more of the same? Is this people lashing out about, oh my goodness, there's hedonists in this art critic scene, in this Dime Square scene? Is this the conservatives being appalled that when you do things culturally, it's going to look a little erotic? Maybe. Or is it just totally reasonable that we shouldn't have, the one thing we don't want in a scene like this that's going to have more far-right people than not? Is it too much to ask for a ceasefire? Maybe. But a lot of interesting tweets being sent out in reaction to this. And I guess it's causing a little bit of a wedge. But I don't know. One thing I will say, and I don't know if this is a defense, one thing that seems to be kind of missing from all of this is when BAP went out against the critics who were talking about, there shouldn't be any trans people in our movement, not even in the art scene, not even in an aesthetic way, like, hands off of this whole thing. BAP's response was effectively trying to defend this olive branch he's extended to the Dime Square scene. He went on the Red Scare podcast, and that was kind of making everything official. You're going to have a dissident right space merging with a more post-liberal, Nietzschean left movement. And, not that it's a movement. It's just a bunch of people that throw parties in New York. But these people got clout, and they got a popular podcast, and I guess they have a lot of Hollywood type connections. They got to step into normie society, so to speak. So, Basil was getting into some of this. You want to make inroads with the Hollywood people. Well, this is who they are. This is who they attract. This is what the artsy types attract. Dissident fringe figures. Do we have to mention the gay men that are attracted to the Nazi movement? But the angle that BAP was coming at this was trying to defend what he's been doing for the past year, which is normalizing this coalition between the kind of art right and his more political, vitalist, Nietzschean right movement. And it kind of backfired. He's getting a lot of backlash. And I don't know. He's probably going to come out of it all right, because he's already, if you know anything about the guy, I think there's a 1776 article about the nightclub scene being very Nietzschean. If anybody is confused about how someone on the right could be so hedonistic, there's political theory to back that up. And a lot of these people don't claim to be religious, but this is going to cause problems when you don't draw a line in the sand. And like we talked about with Scott Greer before, you got to be able to take criticism, especially ones like this. You cannot react on the timeline. Maybe everything I've said up to this point sounds like a defense, but just to put that to rest, Anna Kachina is messing up. You cannot react. You have to understand who you're pandering to in recent months. And it's not these New York people that built up all your clout and did all of this, networking outside of the Bernie bros. Who is the Red Scare's audience right now? Well, it's got to be very friendly with the DR. And if they don't tolerate certain things, you got to see that as a valid purity test. So I know that that's gone a bunch of different ways for both of those factions. But what makes it easier is that it doesn't really involve a lot of us. So, things like this, a review of that can be done without too many stipulations. But, there's a lot there. There's a lot there. When art movements get developed, they're going to face problems like this. Dime Square is Dime Square is the test run for a lot of this stuff. Groypers don't even do art movement stuff. So we completely avoid all of the risks and blowbacks. And I can't believe you did this and the optics nightmares. We're not even competing in that space. So make of that what you will. We're not even competing. So we're like a non-factor. That's kind of depressing. We should have some in, because this isn't just a political movement. However, we should learn from the mistakes that happen in the Dime Square scene, because this stuff is going to be the same things that are going to come out if we were to do such a thing. If there was going to be a Zoomer counterpart, if there was going to be a kind of art right among people my age, this is the kind of thing we would have to be aware of. And how would we handle something like this? We don't really have to ask those questions because our political stance is clear. The gatekeeping is clear. But all these other people, they don't have that security policy. So they got to deal with an awkward week on the timeline. It is what it is. But it's interesting. It's interesting. A lot of that stuff's been coming to a head recently. I don't know what the chat is saying, because my chat, I guess, is a little messed up on my desktop. I'm sure it's, yeah, I knew there was going to be a laundry list here. That's most definitely not what's up. Yeah, maybe you're right. New York is overrepresented on Twitter. Yeah, probably. Something like 80% of right-wing Twitter is from New York. Think about the whole bodega thing. Urbanite apologism, basically. BAP has been fighting with Christians, ruralist types for a while. Yeah, of course. Losing strategy. We need higher standards, not lower. And more open ones. Yeah. The worst thing about Anna is that she let herself be pulled into some gay movie with Brianna Wu, of all people. Yeah, exactly. Totally giving the critics their narrative on a silver platter. Totally conceding. That's too bad. What actual art has come out of that scene? Well, that's a good question. And again, it's a scene that I'm interested in still, even with all the controversy. It's the only art scene that's like right-wing friendly. So, people like Sailor have tried to make inroads with that crowd. And some might see that as subversion. Some might see it as the natural next step, because who's he going to sell his book to? Who's going to be his audience? Paulia tried to sell, what was that, Glittering Images? or Free Women, Free Men, Free Speech, whatever. One of those books I thought was supposed to be pandering to like conservative moms, older demographics. It's like, okay, if that's your beat, then that's your goal. But someone like Steve Saylor would be very smart. People like Lomez are smart to pander to younger men that are interested in these ideas and also want to kind of branch out. So yeah, Anna Kay has done way more than a lot of people, done more than a lot of Zoomers. But usually when she kind of stays out of drama, I think this one was a little personal because it was a friend. It was a friend who got involved. So it is what it is. But, you know, we're still going to see a lot of interesting stuff come out of that sphere. And I'm not as appalled, to be honest. I'm not really. We knew all this stuff. We knew who all these people associated with. It is what it is. But for everybody else who was in this for political reasons, or who are seeing the limits of an art scene, this is a nice watershed moment. So maybe something like this needed to happen. But it's interesting. But anyways, that's the beef. What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of all that? It's interesting from a cultural perspective. Yeah. And again, Dime Square, you know, has a popular podcast, Sovereign House platforms, I Am 1776, Steve Saylor types. You know, there's a lot of cool stuff happening in New York. I'm not going to let this incident undo all this other bridge building. But, you know, it's like when the homosexuals become very political and they want to all of a sudden be critics. It's like, remember what you're good at. Remember in the 70s when gay guys got into the art world and, you know, the ones that wanted to be post Stonewall activists. Okay, well, that's your thing. And you kind of stayed out of the music scene and the art scene. But for everybody else, you know, find your demographic that you can stay loyal to, and then don't effort post on the timeline. It doesn't work. It doesn't work for anybody. So, anyways, I think that's just a very fair summary of everything. I think that's everything that Dudley Newright posted on his Substack. So I'm just giving you the gist or my impression of the things. But, you know, again, Dime Square is going to have all kinds of stuff, good and bad, probably. But it is what it is. Sovereign House platforms, some interesting stuff. But for Zoomers, we gotta learn from these happenings. It was a long time coming, but it seems to be really artificially pushed for petty reasons. Like BAP does not interact with this individual at all. Yeah, that's the other thing. Well, like I said, he's defending. He knows what's happening. People are using this as a catalyst to go after everything he's done for the past month, or the past year, rather. Him extending that olive branch to the Dime Square scene. So, of course, he put himself in a spot where he has to defend, allegedly has to defend all of this. So, it's awkward. It's awkward for him, but that's what he chose. But yeah, it is what it is. The millennials, man, the millennials. What are we going to do with these people? These are critics. What are we going to do with these people? All right. That's about all I got. I feel like meandering. I don't know if there's anything else. Besides that. But yeah, man, drama week. But luckily, we can come out of it unscathed. And by the way, Isaac Simpson. Isaac Simpson from the Carousel podcast. He was vindicated. He talked about this before everybody else, got no credit for it, got flack. And that was a rough week. And then I made it worse. Which, sorry about that. That was a young, dumb mistake. But he was right. He was right, you know, whenever that was, like a month ago, maybe 2 months ago at this point, when he was calling all this stuff out, saying this is, you know, a disaster waiting to happen. You got all these hanger-ons, these groupies effectively, orbiting the scene. And they're going to try to have hegemony over the scene. They're going to use their status, much like during the Thought Wars when you had e-girls trying to get influence in the alt-right. The guys want their attention. The women want the attention. Mutual understanding. Perfect opportunity for regime change. And Isaac called it out. So, you know, that happens. That happens. But you never get credit for being the first guy to say it. So now we're dealing with this. And now it's okay to talk about it. So I guess it all comes out eventually. The one Baptist with the the PFP. I don't know. That guy has me blocked. That guy has me blocked. I think because I was too friendly. I was identifying as a groiper. I think that was enough for him. So I missed a lot of his content. I think you were talking about Martin. Yeah, Martin. But fair enough. We're in different cliques. So it is what it is. But anyways, that's the weekly update. What was the Norm Macdonald thing called? Weekend update. You know, that's that. But anyways, I think I'm going to relax. I think I'm going to enjoy the rest of Friday. But I appreciate you guys for making it easy. I appreciate all you guys. Thank you for stopping by on a casual Friday. I'll probably go into Twitter Space. We'll probably be back. I don't know. I actually don't know. I shouldn't say. But, you know, check out New Right Post. Go easy on some of these people I'm talking to. Go easy. Maybe they'll post something that looks a certain way. But there's also some flexibility. And I think that's going to help our brand moving forward. So I know how it's going to look, but maybe this stream can put some conspiracies to rest, speculation away. Things may not be as they seem. All right. I think we're wrapping up. All right. Well, I appreciate you guys, seriously, on this casual stream. So I'll be around Twitter as usual. And yeah, if anybody else graduated, congrats. Or if they're getting ready for the fall semester, keep at it. I'm liking college more and more the more I stay around it. So hopefully I don't lose my edge or lose my mind. We'll see. But thank you guys. I appreciate you guys for stopping by. Stay tuned in. Check out the Twitter account for the more consistent content. And I appreciate you guys for stopping by. Take it easy, guys.